Compartment 9, Barents Sea, 134 meters below the surface. The water is already in. 23 men are still alive. They know this because Captain Lieutenant Dmitry Kolesnikov is writing it down. He presses the note against a dry patch of hull. He records the time, 13:15. The explosions happened 4 hours ago. They are in complete darkness. The temperature is dropping, and no one is coming. At least, not yet. The Russian Navy knows exactly where the Kursk is. They have the coordinates. They have rescue vessels on the surface. But for reasons that would take years to excavate from classified files and official denials, those vessels cannot or will not get anyone out. 23 men in Compartment 9 will wait for 5 days. The rescue attempt that should have saved them takes 4 hours once a foreign nation finally does it themselves. That is the question this investigation is built around. Not how the Kursk sank, but why, when it did, no one could get those men out. Kolesnikov's note was recovered when Norwegian divers finally opened the hatch on October 26, 2000, 73 days after the Kursk went down. The Russian government had the note translated, classified, and withheld from the families for weeks. When it was finally read aloud publicly, it changed everything the official narrative had claimed. It confirmed that men survived the initial explosions. It confirmed they were lucid, organized, and waiting. It confirmed they had time, hours of it. The note ends mid-sentence. Kolesnikov stopped writing. The investigators never released the exact cause of death in Compartment 9. What they did release, 4 years later under pressure, was a single toxicology finding. The men died when a chemical fire broke out as seawater contacted the emergency oxygen regeneration cartridges. The fire lasted seconds. The smoke did not. 23 men who survived 2 catastrophic explosions were killed by the rescue equipment designed to keep them breathing. This fact does not appear in the first 3 official Russian statements about the Kursk. Norwegian rescue divers opened the Compartment 9 hatch in 4 hours. 4 hours. Russia had spent 5 days and every available domestic rescue asset claiming the hatch was impossible to open. Damaged, bent, pressure-locked. The Norwegians, using standard NATO rescue equipment, cut through it in less than a working shift. This is not a minor detail. This is the load-bearing contradiction at the center of everything that follows. To understand why it happened, the investigation has to go back. Not to the morning of August 12, 2000. Not even to the exercise that week. It has to go back to 1991, to the moment the Soviet Navy ceased to exist, and the Russian Navy inherited a fleet it could not afford to maintain, could not afford to fuel, and absolutely could not afford to admit was falling apart. By 1999, the Russian Navy had not conducted a full-scale fleet exercise in nearly a decade. The budget for the entire Northern Fleet, the most powerful submarine force Russia possessed, had been cut by more than 80% since 1991. Sailors were going unpaid for months at a time. Ships sat in port rusting. Submarines that should have been decommissioned were kept technically active on paper because Russia could not afford the cost of formal decommissioning. Admiral Vladimir Kuroyedov, chief of the Russian Navy, said publicly in 1999, 1 year before the Kursk disaster, quote, "The Navy is in catastrophic condition. We are one accident away from a catastrophe." That statement was printed in Russian newspapers. It was noted by Western naval intelligence. It was filed. The exercise planned for August 2000, the one the Kursk was conducting when it sank, was the first major Northern Fleet exercise since 1992. It was meant to signal that Russia's military had recovered. It was a demonstration, not a readiness assessment. The Kursk, K-141, was commissioned in 1994, an Oscar II-class nuclear-powered cruise missile submarine, 154 meters long, nearly 14,000 tons when submerged. It carried 24 cruise missiles and a complement of 118 men. By all public classifications, it was among the most capable submarines in the Russian fleet. But the Kursk had a weapon system aboard that its own engineers had flagged as dangerous. The Type 6576A torpedo, a high-test peroxide-fueled weapon, had a documented history of fuel leaks. High-test peroxide is extraordinarily unstable. In contact with almost any organic material, it ignites spontaneously. In 1955, HMS Sidon sank in Portland Harbor after a similar torpedo exploded during exercise. The British Navy banned the fuel type entirely after that incident. The Russian Navy did not. Inspectors reviewing the Kursk's torpedo inventory in 1999 noted corrosion on torpedo tube seals. The report recommended replacement before the vessel conducted live fire exercises. The recommendation was not acted on. The exercise was scheduled anyway. Captain First Rank Gennady Lachin commanded the Kursk. By every account, from his crew, from his commanding officers, from the subsequent investigation, Lachin was experienced, competent, and cautious. He had commanded the Kursk since 1999. He had raised concerns through the chain of command about maintenance funding before the exercise. Those concerns were noted. He was told the exercise would proceed. Among the crew, 23-year-old Sergei Tilik on his first extended deployment. 30-year-old Maxim Borzhov, who had written a letter home 3 days before the exercise saying the submarine was in, quote, satisfactory condition, which for us means we count the things that work rather than the things that don't. That letter was in Russian naval intelligence files by August 13th. It was not released to Borzhov's family until 2002. The 118 men aboard the Kursk were not reckless. They were professionals operating inside a system that had been systematically defunded, deferred, and denied for a decade, and told to perform anyway. August 12, 2000, 11:28 a.m. local time. The Kursk is at periscope depth, preparing to fire a practice torpedo at the cruiser Pyotr Veliki as part of the exercise. The Type 6576A in Tube 4 has a leak in its fuel section. High-test peroxide is already seeping. At 11:28:26, the peroxide contacts a faulty weld inside the torpedo pacing. The reaction is immediate. The explosion is equivalent to approximately 100 kilograms of TNT detonating inside a sealed metal tube inside a pressurized compartment aboard a submarine. It registers 1.5 on the Richter scale on seismic monitoring stations as far away as Alaska. The Kursk drops like a stone. The forward torpedo compartment is destroyed instantly. Everyone in compartments 1 and 2 is killed in the first seconds. The Kursk hits the ocean floor at 134 meters depth. The impact alone is measured at 3.5 on the Richter scale. 2 minutes and 15 seconds after the first explosion, the heat from the first detonation reaches the remaining warheads in the torpedo room. 5 more warheads detonate simultaneously. The combined force is equivalent to 3 to 7 tons of TNT. The front third of the submarine no longer exists in any recognizable form. The vessels on the surface feel both explosions. The exercise coordinator aboard the Pyotr Veliki notes the seismic readings at 11:31. The Kursk has missed its firing window. Standard protocol requires radio contact within 10 minutes. At 11:41, the Kursk does not respond. At 1300, 90 minutes after the explosions, the Pyotr Veliki crew formally reports contact loss. The Northern Fleet Command acknowledges. They do not immediately declare an emergency. At 17:30, 6 hours after the explosions, the Russian Navy formally classifies the situation as an accident and begins mobilizing rescue assets. 6 hours. In those 6 hours, the 23 men in Compartment 9 are still alive, still breathing, still waiting.
The rescue assets being mobilized are the AS-34 Deep Submergence Rescue Vehicle, a Soviet-era craft that had not been successfully operated in more than 3 years. Its seals are deteriorated. Its battery life is critically reduced. It will attempt 7 dives over the next 3 days. Every single one fails. For 4 days, the Russian Navy insists it does not need foreign assistance. Norway and the UK both offer rescue assets within 48 hours of the accident becoming public. The offers are declined. Admiral Vladislav Popov, commander of the Northern Fleet, tells reporters that rescue operations are progressing. They are not. The AS-34 cannot maintain a seal against the Kursk's aft rescue hatch. The crew is attempting to dock with equipment that maintenance records show had not been certified for operational use since 1997. On August 15, Day 3, a Norwegian